I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm not speaking meaningfully about anything, okay? Because I don't know what the words I'm using are referencing.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to bring up something like we talked about last time, Jrobin, that I think actually connects to the argument. Um, so, in essence, God has these two seemingly conflicting wills because of free will, right? Because we can freely choose Him.
No, I don't think it's because of free will. I wouldn't
Well,
say it's because of free will.
right, it's because Adam and Eve had the free will, and they had the freedom to choose sin, right?
No, I don't think that free will accounts for the disparity between God's wills. Like I don't
Okay,
think
so
that the reason
I
like I think that even if there wasn't free will, I don't think that would change the fact that God could have two different wills.
but if there wasn't free will, there wouldn't be evil, right?
If evil, you're just talking about like a willful sort of like
Well, just
um
like defiance against God, stealing, like all the things you mentioned were evil, right? It's because of free will, right? Like that's why there's evil in the world because people are freely choosing it to be rebellious
sure,
against God.
yeah. Right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay. So that's the reason that these two wills are seemingly in conflict, right?
No, that's not the
But
same.
what we talked about,
I don't think so. The reason there's evil and the reason why the wills are in conflict are two different things. I don't think
um,
free will is the reason why the wills
well,
are in
no, but
conflict with
what
each
I'm
other.
saying is like God's wills would be perfectly like the I keep forgetting what you say, like the decreative the decreative will and his prescriptive will, they'd be perfectly aligned, right? Because we would all just do the good, right? If we were basically like meat robots that he created that worked the way he wanted, right? We would just do the good, and it would also be part of his his divine plan of history, right? But the reason he's even having these two different wills is because he's essentially working with us as we're sinning and using that as part of the redemptive plan of history, right? It's ultimately part of his plan for people to freely come choose him.
Okay, if you're talking about like with respect to the God's prescriptive will, yeah, like so the fact that there's evil, right? That's going to be a disparity between evil, and evil is accounted for in part by free will. Sure.
What else is it accounted for if not free will and man's rebellion?
It was
Is
accountable
there
by both free will and the ability to choose to rebel against God, right? There's free will
right,
and the ability
exactly,
to
the
choose
ability
to
to
rebel against
freely
God.
make a morally significant choice, right?
Yeah, to rebel against God, yeah.
Exactly. Okay, perfect. So I think that we're in agreement there. So then I guess I would just bring up the question I brought to you last time about babies who die before they can make that morally significant free choice, or people with severe special needs. Um, to me, I think that that would fly in the face of the assumption that that's the reason, right? Because the whole need for the separate wills is because we can make morally free significant choices, or through our faculties that have been developed, but we know babies aren't born like Adam and Eve to make that choice. And then we know that they die and they suffer, and like we talked about last time, they either go straight to heaven or straight to hell, compared to me, who is doing that, and I am suppressing the truth and unrighteousness, right? And I'm ostensibly going to burn in hell if I were to die right now.
Yeah, but I mean, the answer is clear. We don't know exactly how God is going to hold babies accountable.
Yeah,
All right,
but either
so
a baby,
we can't assume
but
that
we
God is
know
just
baby
going to let them
can't
give them a
make a
free
more
pass.
right, but we know a baby can't make a morally significant, like, free choice, right? Because it can't comprehend what's going on.
I don't know if that's true with respect to like God, and I don't
So
know exactly how that works, or even
you
like
take
yeah. I mean,
a can make a morally free significant choice, despite all the evidence we have with neurology
I'm just saying I
and
don't know how God holds how God holds babies accountable. So I'm agnostic towards
yeah, what
their
could they
ability to.
for, right?
No,
There's
I'm just
nothing they could.
I don't know. I don't know.
But you just
Maybe
said to me earlier it was because we make those, significant choices where evil exists because of free will and the ability to choose to rebel against God. But a
sure, but
baby can't.
I don't know all the fact. Like I don't know if there may be other factors that are involved that might be relevant to making a morally significant
Would
choice that I'm not aware of.
so you think that a baby could potentially be rebelling against God?
I'm saying that they could be making they. I'm saying that they. God, I don't know how God holds them morally responsible. That's all I'm saying. Right. So yeah.
Yeah, but evil exists because we make those morally significant choices with our free will. A baby cannot do that.
Well, yeah. So when I said free will is a factor, right? There are multiple factors, right? So I don't
Yeah,
know
you
all
get
the factors that may contribute to
the
moral
abil-
significant choices.
yeah, yeah, exactly. The ability to make that morally significant choice and free will. The baby, you could say, has the free will in some senses, I guess, but cannot make a morally significant choice where it understands the consequences of what it's doing. Right? It can't sin. It can't reject God like
I
I
don't
can.
agree to that.
You think a baby can reject God?
I think that babies can make. Again, I don't know what it can or cannot do. That's what I'm telling you.
So
But I
you
think that
believe?
I don't know how
Do you
God holds them. I don't know how
believe,
God holds them accountable.
do you
That's what I'm
believe
saying.
abortion is murder?
Abortion is murder. Yes, I do.
Yes.
Hmm.
Okay. Perfect. So a baby that was aborted before a certain point doesn't even have a conscious experience, right? So a baby aborted after a week, a couple months, will
Hmm.
not even have a conscious. No way it can make a morally significant choice, which means God created a
How do you
soul
know that?
because through everything we've learned in science that a baby cannot. Do you take it that that's possible that a baby can, and what kind of choice could it make?
I don't know, but you're telling me it's impossible.
Yeah, babies don't even
Wait,
have
so
a
how do you know
concept
that?
of permanence through science, through
Yeah, but how do you
test.
know that they can't make a morally significant choice? Like, how do you know that God can't? I mean, even if they, even like morally significant choices aside, how do you know like there's not a way for God to hold them accountable for whether
Well, what
whatever
would
they
they be
do?
held accountable for? What choice could they
I don't
make that
know.
was more
I'm just
significant?
telling you. I mean, how do you know that they can't? You're
Like a
telling me it's
baby
not possible.
aborted. Look, a baby aborted in a mother's body has zero agency, especially at a certain stage of development. And you believe that that's murder, and that baby has a soul. That baby can't do anything, so it can't rebel against God. It can't commit a sin, right?
How do you know that though? I mean, you're just making the question against my position. You're saying you can't do anything. I'm asking you how do you defend
Okay,
that?
because of the impossibility of the contrary, do you take it that the baby and the fetus and the woman could have done some morally significant thing without a conscious experience?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking you to defend. You're telling me it's not possible. I'm
Yeah, in
agnostic
some
towards that.
cases it doesn't even move, right? It has no signs of having any kind of conscious experience response to stimuli, anything. This isn't even debatable among Christians or religious people that babies can't make morally significant choices.
I don't know what
Even
other
if
Christians say. Like Christians,
look,
like there could be Christians who speculate and conjecture on things that is irrelevant. Like you're talking to me, right? So my
okay, let me
position is
ask
that
you
I don't know.
well, so if a baby crawls over to a gun and is playing with it and pulls the trigger and kills somebody, at like a year old, do you think that that baby needs to repent? Or would you think it's safe to say the baby doesn't know what it's doing?
I don't know.
What do you think?
I
If you
mean,
had to
probably
guess.
not. Probably not. But that's irrelevant to whether or not they
Okay,
can
perfect.
like choose to follow Jesus Christ or follow God or what moral
Right.
culpability
But in
they do
the
have.
case where a baby kills somebody, you're saying
Yeah,
probably not, right? So the baby
yeah.
cannot make a morally significant choice. We both agree with that.
No, that's not the same as saying they can't make it morally significant. That's saying that in that instance they may or may not be held accountable for that action. But that doesn't mean they cannot make
So we would
any
say,
morally
like,
significant choice.
the baby shoots its mother, that's like a pretty egregious thing, and we both would still think that the baby didn't know what it was doing and it doesn't need to repent, right? It's a pretty
That's different
serious.
from saying that that's different from saying that they cannot make any morally significant choice, which you're trying to say here, right? Because
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
guess.
it just sounds like you're adopting the identity theory of the mind, which I don't adopt, right? So I
Well,
think
it doesn't. It
there are
doesn't matter
spiritual
what
there
your
are
theory
spiritual
behind it.
no, I do
We
think there are
know.
spiritual implications, right? In that the spirit, like one spirit, does not depend necessarily upon the mind for its existence, right? And that God has ways of holding people morally accountable. Those ways are not known explicitly to everyone, but whatever God chooses to do, I trust that it's going to be God's holy and righteous judgment.
Right, but
So
all I'm saying
babies
is we
or
can't. Like the baby can't contemplate like what I'm doing right now, right? I'm using on your worldview, right? I'm using my experience, either because I love my pride, or I'm angry at God, or whatever the theory may be, from this world that I've developed through my conscious experience and reached the rejection of God, and I'm suppressing the truth and unrighteousness. Like, I'll grant you all of that, but the babies can't go through that process. So like what you might be saying is like the fetus, like before the mother aborts it, like its soul is created and its soul just rejects God off no, you know, internal anything, right? Because it can't even comprehend any influences, any desires. It doesn't even have a conscious experience, but its soul is just made, and then it automatically rejects God or it automatically accepts God. So it doesn't go through the same process that I do. It
Okay,
doesn't ever have to make a
how's that
morally
relevant to? Yeah,
choice
but how?
because it's not
Okay,
making a
well, hold
choice.
on.
It's just born.
I mean, you haven't made the case for. I mean, you haven't given me a reason to accept what you're saying, right?
Well, I'm taking what you just said. So you said maybe it's the case that the fetus, before it's aborted, rejects Jesus Christ. That could be possible. That's what you're saying, right?
Well, Jesus, I don't know if it's. I wouldn't say Jesus Christ specifically. I just say that there's a morally specific choice that's going to warrant, or not morally.
Yeah.
There's some sort of
Well, I
moral.
mean,
There's
it's
like
not
some sort
Jesus,
of
but
moral
baby.
accountability that would warrant God's judgment one way or another.
Well, the
That is
baby
held to the
can't accept
baby.
the law or Brahma and go to heaven, right? It's got to accept Jesus.
I don't know what sort of moral accountability the baby would be held to, what standard the baby would be held to.
So
So
if
I
it's
couldn't
not,
answer that question.
so if it's not held to any standard, right? If there's not any way to judge it the same experience I'm going through, then your God is not perfectly just.
No, God obviously has a way of dealing with those things. So there is a standard, of course. So the
Yeah,
point
and
the point is
so
that I don't know how God is going to deal specifically with them because of course babies are different from human beings with respect to like how we like obviously interact with people. So I can't
yeah,
clearly answer that question.
they can't comprehend like cognitively like this. I mean, this it's interesting to me that you're rejecting this
Yeah,
because this isn't
cognitively. Yeah, no, but like so
right. Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
maybe maybe we would make no so we would agree the thing is that I don't hold to identity theory of the mind. Like I don't think that we're only physical, right? So I think that there's some sort of moral accountability that God can have or that God could hold people towards that is not strictly restricted to
Yeah,
whether
that's fine. I'll grant
to
you
the
that, right?
mental capabilities or the brain capabilities of the
Yeah.
person.
So let's say I grant you that, right? But then that brings up the argument that I had before about the soul. So a woman is going to have an abortion and she's going to kill a baby that is 1 month old, that is still in development. That soul was created. There is no exterior influence like what I'm having for it to be prideful or for it to reject God because it loves its sin, right? Because it can't sin, because it can't do anything. It can't comprehend anything. So maybe it has a soul, and that soul was automatically created to either reject Jesus Christ or to accept it, which is to say that God is not perfectly just because he did not give that baby the same chance I did or the same chance that Adam and Eve did, where they were put in the garden and were able to make a morally significant choice to accept God and accept God's will, or to suppress the truth and unrighteousness, or to love their sin or to love their pride.
Well, you don't have any ground to stand on to say any of that, right? Like you don't have any ground to stand on to say that God cannot instill a standard that is consistent or that like that can equally be applied to people, but it's just in different circumstances.
But the
Like you don't
standard
have a
you
way of
agreed
saying that.
to, the standard this is an internal critique of what you agreed to, is that the reason evil exists is because we make morally significant free choices. And we all have the chance to choose God or to choose otherwise.
Yeah,
Yeah, but we
that's
don't
true.
all have that because
Yeah, we do.
babies don't have that.
Well, no, God has a way of holding them morally. God will have a way of holding them morally accountable for whatever they do. So
What
there's
what
some sort of
what action could
I
they
don't
be more?
know. I don't know. But the point is that God is always righteous and just in his decrees and in his judgments. So whatever standard he applies to people who have altered states of consciousness or babies or anything of the sort is
But
going
the
to be held to
standard
be a
you
righteous and
said
just
that he
assessment.
uses is the morally significant free choices. Because again,
Yeah,
then my
we have
argument goes
morally
through.
so yes. So hold on a minute. I said that God holds us morally culpable, right? And so yes, we have morally significant choices, right? We're held morally accountable, but the way that the baby might be held morally accountable is could be different from the way that we may be held morally accountable,
So
or at least
evil
like the way we
doesn't.
live in our lives.
Okay, so then what you're saying is evil doesn't just exist because of morally free significant choices we make and free will. There's a third thing. There's some other thing. That's
I
why
told you
evil
that there are
exists.
multiple. Well, no, I told you that there are multiple factors to evil. I told you that
Yeah,
one
yeah.
of
So
them was our free choices.
what would the third reason for evil existing be?
I don't know all the factors.
Okay, so then the problem of evil goes through then, right?
No. How is
So
that
if
relevant to the problem of evil?
because the Christian worldview is giving an account for why evil exists, and it is that we all get to make morally free, significant choices,
No, evil.
right?
Okay.
That's the reason. But
Eve.
you're saying there's an additional reason that God isn't telling us that evil exists too, that there's no account for,
No, no, that's not the. That's not the. Well, even if that was
right?
true,
Which
that
must
wouldn't
just
be a
mean
that wouldn't
which
be a
just means it's
contradiction.
coming from God. Yeah, all good God must be the reason for that. Then, if it's not coming from us,
Yeah, well, that's not a contradiction. Even if that was what I
like
was
why
saying,
is
that
that
that wouldn't be a
that
contradiction.
baby suffering? Like why is the baby being born with cancer, or the umbilical cord tied around its neck? Why is it being aborted, at a certain degree where it can feel pain? Why is it dying in a hurricane? It never got to grow up and make a morally significant choice to be judged for.
How do you know that?
How do I know that? Because they can't make a choice. They don't have conscious
How do you know
experience.
that? How do you know that from now until judgment day, they will never have the opportunity to make a morally significant choice after
Oh, so you're saying that
before
so
according.
that their death here was pointless and they're going to be reborn?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
So are you arguing for reincarnation, which is not
No,
Christian
I
either?
didn't. That's not what I said. Did I say that?
Then you said, "How do I know?" Because the Christian worldview is that we have one life, and then when we die, we will be judged by God. You
Yeah,
don't believe
but that
in
doesn't like so.
reincarnation,
But people, but like your spirit is not identical to your physical brain,
right? Sure, I'm
right?
granting you that. That's fine. My
So
argument goes through it
how do you know that there's not a how do you know that there's not a standard that's in place that may not require your brain to be fully inactive, fully enact or active, wherein you have
because
to
if
make a
it's not
morally
coming
significant
from
choice.
us, right? The reason evil exists is because it comes from us, and we choose to rebel and to love our own sin, right? That is the reason evil exists. That is the reason the Christian worldview gives. But babies and people with significant special needs cannot do that and cannot comprehend their decisions. Therefore, the Christian worldview is false.
Well, how do you know that? Like, so again, how do you know that? Like, after, for example, a baby dies, they don't have the immediate ability to choose between Jesus and not Jesus, or something like that. How do you know any of this is not
So
possible?
we're born here on this earth to have that decision. And that's why there's evil on this earth compared to heaven. So
No,
if
no,
you're
no, that's not
saying,
that's not what I asked you. I'm asking you, how do you know that there's not some other scenario that could be real,
yeah,
wherein
so that's
people who
to say
maybe
it's
did not have the
reincarnated somewhere
chance
else.
here.
Okay, I know I'm answering
I'm
you.
not saying they're
So that,
reincarnated. I'm not saying they're reincarnated.
no, well, their soul is. I mean, you don't have to use the word reincarnated, but their soul is like rebrought to like a conscious experience somewhere else, which is just say they pointlessly die here. They have needless suffering, needless evil occurs to them, and then they grow up somewhere else.
No, no,
Wouldn't it
I'm
make
not. I'm
more
not. I'm not.
sense?
I'm not. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that they were reborn anywhere. I'm saying that right after they die, they may have some sort of clarity, right, to their consciousness, right, that they may not have had when they were on Earth, where their spirit and their body were joined together,
So they get
wherein they
clarity,
had the
so
choice,
they get to see God
wherein they
for
had the
certain.
choice.
No,
No, I'm asking. I don't know what the scenario would be, but you're saying that there
yeah.
is no
Okay,
possible
so there's two.
scenario. What you're
Yes,
arguing is that
exactly.
there is no possible scenario in which a baby could be making, or anyone else could be making a morally
That's
significant
correct.
choice.
That's correct. And
Yeah.
the reason
So
is
how do you
twofold.
know that what I'm telling you is not possible?
I will tell you. Okay,
Okay.
so in one scenario, they are reborn somewhere else, and then
That's not what I'm
they.
saying.
No, no, hold on, listen. I'm about to explain it to you. Okay, in one scenario, they are born somewhere else, and then they die. They've died pointlessly here. They have pointlessly suffered in evil, or maybe their soul goes up to heaven, some holy place, right, where they do not have the influences of this world, and they do not have to suffer this world, which in that case, this was still pointless, and they didn't go through the same experience I do, and God was not perfectly just, right? They did not making that morally significant choice in the same way that we do if they get to go to heaven and see God and experience the ultimate grace and bliss. Otherwise, they're just having a reincarnation somewhere, wherever, if they're having an experience like this, which means they had pointless suffering.
Well, again, I'm not saying that they were reincarnated. That's not the example. The example I brought up was not a hypothetical of reincarnation. I don't. Christianity does not advocate that. Right? The Bible makes it clear that you die once, and then there's judgment. What
Right,
I'm
but I
asking
gave
you
you
is
two
that,
scenarios
yeah, but
where
like
you're
another the other scenario you brought up was that there's pointless suffering. No, well, how do you justify that there's pointless suffering, that it does not serve some sort of a purpose that may not
because
be known to you?
yeah, because the reason that evil exists, right, is because we all get to make on this planet when we are born a morally significant free choice to choose God or to choose otherwise. That
That's
baby
irrelevant.
would be denied that.
Yeah, no, but you told me that the suffering that they would endure would be pointless. How do you know that there's not a purpose for that suffering that you may not know? You're not omniscient, so how could you possibly know that?
Because it's an internal critique of the worldview. It's explaining
No,
why.
my worldview does not hold that is pointless. My worldview holds that it has a greater purpose.
Yes, and the
And
meaning of evil and suffering is because we make morally free significant choices. God is
that's
perfectly just.
irrelevant.
So he lets everybody, so he lets, I'm explaining to you why it would be pointless. So he lets every single person choose on the worldview, right? On the worldview, what you would predict if you made a testable prediction is that Adam and Eve, the type of people like Adam and Eve, would be the ones that come out of women's bodies, that people with severe special needs would not exist. So they could all freely choose God and they can make the morally significant choice dealing with the temptations of this world and reject, like, trying to fight their pride and their desire to suppress the truth and unrighteousness.
Yeah, and it's not clear to me. I yeah, I mean, it's just not clear to me. It's getting kind of late. It's very early in the
All right,
morning.
I'd love to continue this sometime though.
I would love to as well.
Yeah.
So I see you in the rooms a lot. So if you want to continue this later, feel free to raise your hand. So that's you, and that's also Altoid. Um, I hope don't take it the wrong way, right? When I talking to Altoid, I'm not attacking him as a person, other than to say that he was acting desperately and sometimes dishonestly. But most of the time, it's about his argument. But yeah, I do look forward to having another conversation with you and continuing this train of thought.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so yeah,
All right. Well,
definitely.
yeah. Thanks for the conversation. Have a good night.
All right, you too. Thank you everyone for being in the room. This was Christianity versus Atheism Part 9, and we've been here for about 2.5 hours. And I think I'm going to end the room here.
Game over. Game over, lights out.
Yeah, that's fine.
You've just been completely obliterated publicly.
Shut up while I'm talking, right?
Caught, you've been folded like a chair caught with your pants down.
Will you fucking shut him up? I wanna respond.